Welcome to Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neri, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
All right, welcome back to Roadmap to Retirement. I'm excited to be joined today by Jessica Robinson and Dave Pulcini. Today's topic is talking about how to talk to your kids about money so they develop good money habits and hopefully become responsible adults at some point. And then give you the best introduction, Jessica. Would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, my name's Jessica. I'm a professor of psychology at St. John Fisher University. I'm a developmental psychologist, so my work mostly deals with how kids grow and change, particularly around their cognitive development, so how the ways they think change. I've been at Fisher for almost 5 years now, and before that I got my PhD at the University of Rochester, so did grad school here and then just stuck around.
There you go. Why would you ever leave Rochester? Love it. And then Dave's here today. Dave's another CFP in our office, which is great and gives good insight, but really as a father of two, we wanted to have somebody on that would have a little real life example of how they talk to their own kids about money. So anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm a little nervous now. This is great. This will be a coaching session for me.
Perfect.
Got the ages covered. A proud dad of a 6.5-year-old. If you get the half.
Very important.
Very important. And my daughter will be 12 this year.
Perfect. Love it. So the way we want to do this is going chronologically in order from, I guess, a newborn, although you're probably not communicating much to them, all the way up until getting your kids through that college age where they start to make their own financial decisions. So right off the bat, Jessica, what's the earliest that you think you should be talking to kids about money?
Really when they can talk, right? Around toddlerhood, 2 to 3 years old is when they really start being able to engage with you in meaningful conversations. Mostly they learn by watching at that age. Modeling good behavior, narrating for them things that you're doing is like really the way to go with toddlers, I think. You can also start them out on basic skills like counting, being able to differentiate different coins, that kind of thing.
Okay. Is there, I guess there's probably an age where they become more advanced, obviously, but I think about the kids' version of Monopoly as like a game to start to learn about money. Is there, Monopoly's probably too advanced, but a game that's available that you know of that is a good starting point for kids?
I'm not sure I can think of anything for toddlers off the top of my head, but they do pretend play, right? Getting them to exchange toy coins for their doll if they wanted, or things like that get them engaged in that type of exchange interaction could be a good way to get started, I think.
Sure, that makes sense. So flipping back over to you, Dave, as an experienced father, you've been through this a couple times, really gonna put the spotlight on you, but what are some things you've done with your own kids and how early did you start having that conversation?
Well, I didn't start when they were 2 or 3, so I already feel really far behind.
Not at all.
Right? So if I'm a parent that's behind, I want to ask you about that.
No.
The counting, the coins, that's important. They do understand that. I've noticed, so my daughter's in 5th grade. Probably around 3rd or 4th grade is when she started to pick it up. There's the stuff with the school lunches, and she understood the balance and what that meant when it went away. We showed her when we were replenishing the school lunch account and what that means. But yeah, I'm anxious to hear about when you said they change their minds or the mindset changes as they get older.
Yeah.
I'll let Alex ask the questions. But it's interesting because you get them going in a certain path, and if their mindset changes.
I want to touch on something else you brought up that's important, and it seems like all the schools went to this school lunch system where if parents listen that don't know this yet, you will soon, but there's a balance that you have with the school district, and your kids go in for lunch every day, and they especially spend down that balance. And Jessica, we talked about a little bit the importance of seeing money. So how does it change a child's mindset when they don't actually see or hold in their hands the physical money versus going to school? And I've talked to a ton of parents about this, that suddenly that $20 that they put on doesn't last as long as it should.
So this is one of the ways that kids' style of thinking changes as they get older. Younger kids, like elementary school age, tend to be very concrete thinkers, right? They can think logically, but it has to be something tangible that they can see and manipulate. So when it is like an account balance that they don't see or don't handle, it can be hard for them to understand what exactly is going on. So I think the more tangible you can make it for kids in that elementary school age, the better they're going to be able to do. So maybe at the start of the week, you sit down with them and show them, like, here's how many dollars you have. Here's how many dollars it costs each day. Maybe get out the monopoly money, right? And say, this is how many dollars you have in your account. This is how many you're going to take out each day. If you take out more than that, what's going to happen? Let's see. And have them take out extra money every day. Oh, now it's Friday and you have $0 left. What are you going to do?
It's a real question. It's harsh, but you legally have to feed your kids. So you can't let them go hungry. But what is a reasonable consequence when they run out of money? Is it they have to pack a lunch and don't get to buy the lunch from the school with their friends? Instead, they've got to make their own sandwich. What do you do as a parent? And maybe that's a better question for
what would you do
for Dave here.
Friday's pizza day, so it's a great day.
It's
for
very
punishment.
important.
Great day.
I would. It's never happened because once you put in $20, it actually, just so you guys know, it automatically replenishes.
Oh, good.
So they'll just pull it off of your bank account. If they ran out of money due to fault of their own, I would just walk them back through why that happened and what that actually means in the real world. If that happens to mom and dad, we literally don't have food for the day.
Yeah.
Now you're lucky, and you should be grateful. You have pizza day still. I have a question about punishment, though.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Okay, this is a good one. Going back to Monopoly. If you catch a fifth grader stealing a $500 bill and sticking it under the Monopoly board for later, what are the repercussions for that?
So this actually taps into one of my areas of research, which is lying. It's pretty developmentally normal for kids to try out lying and see like what they can get away with, and it's actually a really sophisticated cognitive ability to be able to lie and lie. You have to know what I know and be able to massage that.
So the smart ones are cheating.
Sometimes.
Until a certain age, and then they have to stop.
But I think having conversations about why that's bad, like you said, tying it to real life. If you did this in real life, what do you think would happen? Asking questions, why did you do that? And trying to figure out like what their motivation was can help you talk it through with them and help them understand like why we don't do that.
Yeah, I've noticed sophisticated pranks with some kids.
Yeah.
Young.
Yeah, for sure.
What they can come up with.
Yeah. We tend to underestimate kids often, I think.
Yeah, that's scary to, who knows what they're
I'm
really
sure
doing.
you were doing it, Alex.
I never did anything wrong in my life, so we don't have to worry about that. So it seems like our conversation so far has been geared mostly towards probably elementary school kids, school age kids, teaching them lessons about money. What are some things that change as we get into, we'll just say, like the middle school age?
Sure, yeah. So late elementary school, early middle school, you start to see kids be able to think a little more abstractly. They're still pretty concrete thinkers at that point, but they're right on the cusp of adolescence, right, where they really start to think more like adults. So you can start to introduce some of those less concrete concepts, things like long-term planning. They're a little better at, they're less impulsive than they were previously. They're better at things like delayed gratification. So that's a really good time to start helping your kids set longer term financial goals. Like, you want a new bike for the summer. How much money do you have to save every month so that you have enough money by the time the weather's warm enough to ride your bike outside, right? Those kind of things. Helping them differentiate between like short-term wants and long-term wants, helping them differentiate between wants and needs is something that they can really wrap their heads around at that age.
Yeah, and I think that's something that adults struggle with too. We see it all the time of, should you be buying this new car? Should you be putting money towards your retirement or some other long-term goal? So I think it's interesting that maybe if we start that correctly in middle school, they'll do better when they're 25 or 35 or 45.
Right.
And be able to save money a little bit better.
I have two stories for that, Alex.
Perfect.
One was this weekend, Father's Day breakfast. I paid the bill with my card, and other participants gave me cash, but they handed it to my 6-year-old. He then thought it was his cash.
Sure.
We then went and immediately bought sneakers.
Sure.
I couldn't talk him out of it.
It sounds like it's his cash.
It was his cash. It was sent to him, right? That was one, which we worked on that. But my daughter really loved, she's into horses big time. We have horses at our house, but she really wants a Ford Bronco. She's going to be 12. So we went and looked at one. She chose one. It was whatever, $60,000. And it's obviously she's not going to get that. But I backed into how much do you need to save every month from now until you are 18 years old. I did 18.
18,
just
smart.
because it would have scared her more. It's like a bad retirement plan, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to scare you out of it, but do something. But yeah, we showed her the number. And now what I find is when she gets money, she actually does save it for that.
Wow.
But she doesn't use it for anything else.
Yeah.
So if she wants something now, it's no, I want the Ford Bronco, but I also need these 3 shirts.
Right.
So there's a balance there too that
Right.
I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents probably struggle with what are the things that their kids are to save their own money for, and what are the things that you as a parent still have to provide your kids food and shelter and clothing, probably to some extent. So as a parent, how do you draw the line between you're saving your allowance or the money you get from chores to buy your Ford Bronco, which is probably not, versus like you want to go whatever, get an ice cream cone, who pays for that kind of stuff?
And I think that's a good opportunity to talk about that differentiation I mentioned earlier between wants and needs, right? As a parent, your job is to provide for your kids' needs, right? Food, shelter, basic clothing, right? If they want designer sneakers or they want something that's not a need, maybe that's something, it depends on the kid and it depends on the family, but maybe those like wants are the things that they need to be saving for. And again, every family's different, so you have to figure out what works for you and your kid. But those kinds of conversations, I think that's a good time to have those kinds of conversations.
So when you said the mindset changes, like literally something there's so if we're saving, I'm making up a number, $200 a month for a Ford Bronco. You're saying a year from now that might completely change, or she just won't understand why we're doing it, or do I have to have annual reviews with my daughter?
I would say you should have like weekly conversations, maybe about.
It'd be interesting to revisit this in 6 years and see if she actually followed through and got a Ford Bronco or not. I hope she does. I'm rooting for that. It'd be really cool that we had this recorded. We could be like, oh, in 2024, we recorded a podcast talking about how you're going to save by a Ford Bronco.
Yeah, and we're on pace for it to be about $120,000 by then with inflation.
Sure.
That'll be a hard lesson for her as well. But anyway.
One of the things that my parents did when I was a kid is we had like a chore list, and they would assign a value to every chore. So if you whatever rake the leaves, you would get $5 or whatever the number was. So I thought, looking back as an adult, I thought that was a good way to start to teach me about money. And I think my sister participated less, and hopefully she's not listening to this, but I think I was better at money at that age. So what are some other, I always think of like the lemonade stand example. Like I was walking through the Village of Fairport a couple weeks ago during their garage sale weekend thing. And there was a little girl sitting out by the curb with her table set up selling lemonade. And I was a sucker and I bought some, but I think that's always a good way to teach kids about money or through any kind of game like that. But are there other examples that either of you can think of that sort of reflect that value?
Yes. And I had my daughter read this. You're gonna laugh at this. I ordered, what was the number? It was like 30 books on entrepreneurial spirit, money management, and I said, if you read these all, I'll give you a 2-page report. You get Taylor Swift tickets.
Oh wow!
So she did it.
That's a high value prize.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I'm not going. My wife is. But she did the reports, and then afterward, the game for her is the horse stuff. She's starting I had her start basically a pretend equestrian center.
Oh, cool.
With renting horse stalls for X dollar amount. And then it led into, she said, so I would make this much if it cost this. And then I got way more detailed with her.
Yeah.
She can handle it, but it's like, we got into interest rates. What are the taxes?
Nice.
What are the costs of running this business? It's not just, we have a building. So I don't know if it's a game, Alex, but she thought it was fun because I related to horses and Taylor Swift.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I got to think most parents aren't doing that. So it's a cool thing. What do you think of that?
No, I think that's great. I think the more you can tie it into things that they're interested in, the more sort of buy-in you get from them, right? If you tell your kid you will do a lemonade stand this summer, it's probably not going to have the same educational value for them as something that they're interested in.
Sure.
I think, again, your daughter's 12.
Yeah, she's 12.
So she's right on that border between childhood and adolescence. She can handle a little more complexity, a little more like abstract stuff like interest rates. So targeting their interests and their abilities, I think is a really good way to go.
Yeah. And trying to keep it positive.
Yeah.
Because
don't make it scary.
The reality of it is, I mean, if you know this, you talk to most adults about, well, if you talked about amortization schedule, and this shifts over here and it's pre-tax and this is deductible, you're scaring people away.
I'm getting a little nervous right now.
We don't want that. All right. Jessica's nervous. Let's change gears then. So so far we've covered elementary school, middle school to some extent, unless we have something to add there. But then into high school, I think, is where the money lesson probably changes a little bit because now you have kids that have part-time jobs. You have more of an adult mindset where you can start to get into more of the complex things that you're already doing with your 12-year-old. But for the rest of the world, it might be a good time to get into that. So how do part-time jobs play into it? What kinds of conversations should parents have at that point?
Sure. So adolescents, like I said, they're starting to think more like adults, but they're still new at it. Some of the big milestones in adolescence are kids can start to think more abstractly. So they can apply the logic that they were using for concrete, tangible stuff. They can now apply to abstract, intangible ideas. Things like credit, right? A little kid sees you swipe your card and it's magic, right? Like we just were visiting my family. My niece is 6, and we were at the store, and she was like asking my brother, "Why can't I have it? Just pay with your card." And he was trying to explain to her, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. That still is like money that we don't have. But because of her age and her cognitive limitations, she couldn't wrap her head around that. A high school student can. That's a really good time to start talking to your kids about stuff like credit, how to build good credit, where the money comes from, interest rates, right? If you don't pay your credit card off every month, you get charged interest on the balance, right? All that kind of stuff. Adolescents are also in this interesting phase where they're trying to be adults, but they still, in most ways, are kids, right? So between the ages of 18 and 18, the role of the parent is really to gradually give the kid more autonomy and more independence as they are able to handle it. Right. So I think you can apply that to money as well, right? Maybe you open a savings account for your kid when they were 10. Giving them more control over that, over their own money as they get older is probably a good idea. Set up a checking account for them when they get that first part-time job. And at first, maybe you help them with their budget and help them keep track of their balance. And then as they get older, leave that more to them to do once they have a good foundation of how it all works.
Sure. I think that all makes sense. It's definitely a transition. And I think a lot of parents, to go back to that part-time job thing, as you have income of your own, maybe shifting some of the responsibility for things you were paying for your kid for the first, call it 16 years. And now you have a job so you can pay for your own, whatever it is, meals, gas, whatever they have at that point.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Dave, you're not there yet. What are you thinking about as a parent when you think of the next chapter once you get there?
I guess I haven't thought about it. These are great ideas. What I just thought of was, where does the money come from?
Yeah.
The card.
Yeah.
And I think showing a balance on a page, and then we went to Target and did this, and then we see minus 55.
Yeah.
This will run out.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the younger kids, not to get out of chronological order here. Do you know what Roblox is?
Yeah. Yep.
Roblox, if you're not familiar with it, it's a game on a computer or an iPad that you can put Robux into. So it costs like $1.99 to get 100 of whatever. I don't know what the numbers are. But the kids get that budget and then they can spend it down. I've seen with my little guy, the 6.5-year-old, when he runs out of money, there's no need to punish him.
Yeah.
He's already just mad.
Distraught.
It's like, buddy, if you want to get that next time, remember, the minute you get $1 put in there, don't use it all. And he's caught on to that actually pretty quickly because he doesn't want to be upset. I just say I can't put any more in.
Right.
So back to the teenager thing, the teenager, I think some sort of monthly or weekly meeting. I think weekly is a lot for parents.
Yeah.
Sure. Ideally, that'd be great. Let's sit down and go through what happened this week. We can't get folks with millions of dollars to do this twice a year. But a monthly meeting or budget and showing where money comes from and developing credit. Then there are credit cards they can go on. I don't know if you're going to get into that. I don't want to steal that from you, but kids can go on a credit card with parents to build their own credit for when they do leave the house.
Yeah, that's important too. I've talked to people in their young 20s who don't have any credit established because they never had a credit card. Now they're trying to buy a car or a house and they've got nothing. So even if it's getting your kid a credit card when they're at probably the later end of high school and just buying gas in that card and paying it off every month and getting in the habit of doing that, I think is important. To change gears again a little bit, one of the things that we as advisors get is we're talking to young parents about saving money for their kids' college education. We always have a conversation about how much do you as a parent want to put towards this? Do you want to cover all of it, none of it, half of it? And it seems like most parents agree that they want their kids to have some skin in the game. They don't want to pay for all of it, even if they could afford to do that. So at what point do you think, Jessica, it starts to make sense to teach your kids about the cost of college if they're going down that road? I think that one of the big areas that our society is undereducated in is how student loans actually work.
Yeah.
I think too many 17, 18-year-old kids sign on the line and they take up these big loans, and then 4 years, 8 years later, whenever it is, they start to decide that. So I guess to break that down into a simpler question. When do we start talking to kids about the cost of college?
Yeah.
And what is the right way for a parent to give them some skin in the game, maybe without overwhelming them or putting them in a bad situation?
Yeah. I think you can include kids in those conversations from a really young age, right? You can start when they're in elementary school, showing them your like monthly budget, right?
Mhm.
And this is your college fund or post secondary education, whatever
Sure.
it is they're going to do after high school. This is the money that we're setting aside towards that. So you can start having those conversations early. I would say get serious about it when they're in that transition between middle school and high school.
Okay. So earlier on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really big expense,
Yeah.
right? It takes time and it takes planning. And I see it with my students fairly often, right? That they come in for their academic advising appointment or whatever, and they're like, oh, I can only take X number of credits next semester because I don't have any money to take more credits than that. So
Mhm.
really helping them be prepared for that reality, I think, is really important. But yeah, so start having those conversations early, really get serious about it towards the end of middle school, beginning of high school. And then academically, that's when they're going to start planning for college, right? So getting them to start thinking financially about it, then I think is a good time as well.
Yeah. I've seen some people, I've never done this myself, but argue that you should have your teenager go through an exercise of building the budget they're going to have when they're 22 and out of college.
Mm-hmm.
So build in, you're going to go to this university. It's going to cost you this much in student loans. Your student loan payment will be whatever, $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want an apartment with inflation. That's going to be whatever, $2,000 a month. And the career that you're going into, you can expect a starting salary of 50,000 or whatever the number is, and then challenge them to see if that student loan payment fits in their budget and leaves money to do whatever their hobbies and interests are, go 5 years on the weekends, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of work, but if you can get your teenager to actually do it, I think it might change.
It's really eye-opening.
Yeah, it might change what they want to do. I mean, unfortunately, we're running into all kinds of situations where kids are going to expensive universities, taking out a lot of student loans, and they're then getting into a field that isn't as lucrative as what you would need to support those loans.
Yeah.
I have a question. You notice a difference between the kids that are completely cut off and the kids that things are fully paid for?
I don't usually know enough about my students' finances to see any like patterns, but of the students who have told me stuff about their financial situation, it's a balance, because some of my students who get like totally cut off when they turn 18, they really struggle with the fear and anxiety about money in ways that I think holds them back. On the other hand, like sometimes the kids who don't have to think about it at all, right? Their parents take care of it all. They can take that for granted, I think. So there's a balance, right? Like you want your kid to feel, what's what I'm looking for, like secure and confident and feel like they can function in the world and explore and have a college experience. But at the same time, I think the way you said it was really good. Like you want them to have some skin in the game too.
Yeah, I think we've probably all seen examples of people that are on the other side of that, where they've had a bad experience with money and that they didn't have any, and then they become, I don't want to say overly conservative, but it almost just gets in their way of doing things to grow and develop as a professional, that they're just like kind of hoarding whatever money they have and not willing to. In education, it might be getting the extra degree or whatever it is. In your career, might be just investing in whatever you need to actually accomplish the goal that your career puts before you.
It'd be an interesting study to see if those
for sure.
from that, how they invest. Are they more conservative? Or are they more aggressive? Risk takers? I don't know.
Yeah, totally.
We could talk about that all day. It's kind of, I was just going to compare it to the retired people that save money their entire lives, and now they're retired and they've got however many millions of dollars and they still don't want to spend it because for 70 years they've been obsessed and not only, it's not a bad thing, but they've been diligent about living within their means and living modestly, and now they have this money and you ask them what they want to do with it and they're like, I don't really want anything. My house is paid for and I don't want to travel a ton. I have everything I need. They don't spend it, but I don't know.
I see both. In my group of friends, some of us cut off and some of us, I'll let you guess which one I live with. Everything was paid for. I can't, maybe when we hit like 40-ish years old, I can't tell the difference, but I definitely could tell between when the career started and then when we were building and trying to make things happen up until maybe, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Then I think it evens out later.
Yeah.
Because I have folks that they grew up with very little, nothing was paid for, and they're crazy risk takers. They live and make sense. Or maybe you would, because there's just a lot of people will say, hey, I've been there before.
I do it again.
Yeah.
I know how to be poor. Yeah, heard that.
And then I've seen folks that they were fortunate. They've had things work out for them, and then they're very conservative.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose the money because it'll disappoint my parent, my family.
Right.
Very good. I think we're getting to the end of our time, so I want to close with one last question, and that is, as a parent, when you let go and allow your kids to, this is a little bit of what Dave was talking about, but make their own mistake.
Mhm.
I think there's something to be said for you can't always step in and yell at your kids to save money and
absolutely.
don't buy that. So what is the age where a parent should just let them go and sink or swim themselves?
That's the question.
That's the question. That's the
right?
one. All right.
I don't know that there's like a one size fits all answer for that. I think you as a parent know your kid the best,
Mhm.
right? Where they're at. And I think it is important to let your kids make mistakes and let
Mhm.
them figure it out, right? There's a lot of research on like helicopter parenting, right? Parents who hover
Mhm.
helicopter.
Sure.
It really undermines kids and young adults' confidence in their abilities when parents do that. So giving them, starting when they're preteens, giving them a little bit more
So
and a
sort of
little bit more
easing
and a
into
little
it.
bit more, they're good and they're confident in their own abilities. And they're confident in their ability to fix a problem, right? They will make mistakes, right?
Right.
We all were dumb with money in our 20s, right? Most of us
Most
were.
of it. Yeah,
I
no,
was dumb with
I-
money.
I think that's all of us sitting here.
That giving them the confidence and the knowledge that they need to be able to fix those mistakes when they make them,
Mhm.
I think is really the goal. It's not to stop them from ever making a mistake.
Sure.
Right?
Still learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Kind of like anything else in life.
Sure.
All right. Thank you both for your time. Is there anything else, I guess, before we cut off? Did we miss anything?
I think one of the like big take home messages about parenting from the research, I think, is having open, honest conversations with your kids will get you really far.
Okay.
And that applies to everything, right? But I think a lot of people get intimidated talking about money, particularly with their kids. So just be open and honest and
Can I
it'll
have
work
one
out.
more thing? I know he's
Fair.
If you're being open honest with kids, what if parents don't want them to know the budget? You make a fake budget. I make
Interesting.
if I'm working with somebody and they're making $200,000 a month
Mhm.
and they have a fourth grader,
Mhm. Oh, and you don't want your kid
oh
to.
my, you know that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think
And then it's different.
I think in that case, my default advice is always just to be like honest, right? But I think if that's something you're worried about, still giving them examples of hypothetically, if this were our budget, this is what we do.
I just know that third, fourth, fifth, they'll
Yeah.
tell everybody.
Yeah.
So then a dynamic change of friend.
Yeah. And
relationship.
there are developmentally appropriate ways to be honest with your kids. Like
Mhm.
you don't want to tell your 5-year-old, like, we're out of money this month. Like you don't want to scare them. And you don't want them to be like
We're good.
on the opposite end of
Yeah.
the spectrum, right? You don't want them to be like overly oversharing or whatever. So there are definitely developmentally appropriate ways to be honest with your kids. But I think the more you can do that, the better it is, A, for your relationship with your kids, and B, for their understanding of like how the world works.
Yeah. Hey, last thing I'll say, Alex, I promise, is for the folks that they're making a very high income.
Mhm.
The other thing that I've seen with their adult children is mom and dad were making this. Now I got it. I'm only making $6,000 a month, which would be great.
Yeah.
Because they're used to seeing some crazy number.
Yeah.
So that's different too.
Yeah. It changes the
changes
car they
your
drive, the apartment they pick, and everything else when they're 22.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, it's Shaquille O'Neal said, I don't know if you saw this with kids.
Mm-mm.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, I do.
He said, "You're not rich. I'm rich."
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm rich.
I think there's something to be said for that.
Easier said than done for sure.
Yeah.
All right. We're cutting it off there. Thank you both for your time. This has been
Yeah,
the
of
Roadmap
course.
to Retirement podcast. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Alexander Neri. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Alexander Neri or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Alexander Neri and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.